You're listening to Your Rivers Are Wrong, the podcast. My name is Merle. I'm here with my good friend Dante, and we're here to build worlds and tell their stories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Good morning, or evening, or afternoon, whenever you may be. Welcome back to the Your Rivers Are Wrong podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Dante.
And I'm the other one. My name is Merle.
And we're here, as we are every week, to talk about the wonderful whimsies of world building, the arts and aesthetics of setting up a setting, and telling stories born from it. This is episode, let me check my notes, 17?
Wow, good for us.
I'm definitely going to forget that one of these days. It's getting far up there. Before I could be like, oh, this is definitely our 6th, our 7th, but now that we're at 17, kind of losing track. It's not a bad thing, though.
That means we're like productive, we're pumping out content.
We're productive, we're consistent.
Exactly.
All right, what's the news? What's the news for this week before we jump into our topics?
My news is that I have time off for once in my life.
Nice.
And I'm very happy about it.
Could you explain to me the holidays again? Because
oh yeah,
I'll explain what the holidays actually are, or would you rather I start with what I thought they were?
Okay, hold on. Because in Holland we have like a lot of Christian holidays usually that are like one day off, or like a Friday off, or like a Monday off. I thought, but I got it wrong, as we're gonna see in a second. That it would be nice to take this week off because there was a holiday in between, because then I would have like an extra free day that I wouldn't have to count for my like holiday days that I could take off from work.
Of course, as you do.
As you do, yes, exactly. But turns out it wasn't a Christian holiday because I don't know dates, but it was a thing about like us getting freed from the Germans at the Second World War, which is like the 5th of May is like a holiday for us because of that reason.
Got it. Okay. So you told me that, and I, of course, naturally, me living across the Atlantic Ocean, trying to rack my brain for what holidays are this week. And I was like, all right, so May the 4th is Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And May the 5th is, of course, Cinco de Mayo, two famously Christian holidays happening in May.
Wait, what's the second thing, though?
Cinco de Mayo? You know Cinco de Mayo?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe that's
I'm being
on me,
quizzed
though.
now.
Like...
wait. I don't want to get this wrong. I do not want to get this wrong, but I'm going to look up Cinco de Mayo. It is the yearly celebration that commemorates the anniversary of Mexico's victory over the French Empire at the Battle of Puebla in 1862.
Oh, good for them.
I'd be crucified if I got that wrong.
But is it like a Mexican holiday? Or is it like
I believe so.
Oh, okay.
But it's celebrated all throughout the U.S., and all cultures love to participate. So it's a usually joyous celebration with lots of food, lots of flair.
As a good celebration
overall.
Should be. Perfect. I'm thinking like maybe I should, because I know that in the policy of my work, there's like, if you due to religious reasons don't want to be free on Christian holidays, you can take like, I think there's a total of like seven free days or something standard. They're like, you can take these 7 days for other dates and then just switch them out if you want.
What an interesting
So I'm
policy.
like, okay, if I just take like Star Wars Day and then Bevrijdingsdag, which is the 5th of May thing, and then I take the one that you just said, then I'm like completely efficient in my holidays.
Please show me that email when you send it, that I'd like to take May the 4th and Cinco de Mayo off for my
I believe,
holidays.
I religiously believe in Star Wars. Can I take the 4th of May off, please? Thank you.
The Force is actually an active participant in my life. And I value it very heavily. Right. I'm very quickly realizing that Cinco de Mayo is not something celebrated worldwide.
Oh.
Interesting.
Did you? Oh, okay. Maybe it's like a Latin America thing?
Yes, of course. Most definitely. Yeah, I mean, you learn something new every day, but you threw me for a loop. I was really trying to figure out what holidays you were talking about.
I love that we like always like get across these things as we're talking about it, that we realize that we don't have the same knowledge because you're not from Europe and vice versa, which is great.
Yeah. Again, we must reiterate, as people listening for the first time, I live in the US. Merle here lives in the Netherlands.
Yes.
So sometimes we get our things mixed up every now and then.
This was just like the one time. Sorry, one more thing.
No, you're good.
This is just like the one time where we had like the thing that you didn't know that the Netherlands has like a king and a queen.
No, I didn't.
And you were like, what? What's going on here? Which is funny, actually, because last week we had King's Day, which is a Wednesday, and then we're free. And well, I had a deadline, so I couldn't do anything. But there was like festivities and stuff. And that was also one of those free days. So there you go.
Nice.
Knowledge.
Yeah. I think I remember you mentioned King's Day like a while back. And
I guess we talked about it then. Yeah.
I'm glad we've been doing this podcast long enough to actually reach the holiday. That's awesome. That's
Perfect.
Promising.
That's like a milestone,
Consistency.
maybe. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Speaking of the Atlantic Ocean, I'm officially
okay. Sure.
I'm
go
officially
ahead.
planning my first trip across it.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
Super
Usually I go
fun.
the other way to my home country, but this is exciting. First time in Europe. I'm trying to figure out what the heck, how do I get there?
What it is.
Planes, layovers. I'm learning all the ropes. I'm learning everything about the little intricacies that I truly didn't pay attention to. And the most interesting thing I learned, which blew my mind, are hostels. I did not know what a hostel was.
How is that not a thing in America?
I'm gonna look it up right now
Apparently not.
because I'm Googling it.
The silence
Hostels.
speaks,
There are
speaks for days.
hostels in New York, right?
Yeah.
I've never ever visited one. I've never seen one. And when I was looking it up, I'm like, okay, so these are the options that this one YouTuber presents to me, like Airbnb, hotels, hostels. What's a hostel? I look into it. It's a shared room where you sleep
Exactly.
with like strangers.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. That's crazy. That's
It's like the cheap option. It's like if you're going
Yeah, it is.
backpacking and you need literally a bed, and aside from that, you're
Yeah,
fine.
it
then
is-
you should
it is
definitely go
amazingly
for hostels. Yeah.
affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's like the sort of cheap like bus travel if you don't feel like doing the train or the plane.
right.
And you
right.
have
And
like
you
no
don't-
money and you sit in a bus for like 40 hours to I don't know,
Exactly.
Italy
If you don't
or
wanna
something,
sleep
and
at
it's
the bus
awful, but at least it's
station.
cheap. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to sleep at the airport, things like that. Yeah, I get it. I get it. But I don't know if it's
The
if it's
concept
just
didn't
me or
exist
something like
in your
in
brain.
America, hostels are not.
Hmm.
I would not.
Interesting. I mean, okay.
Okay. Hear me out. This is crazy. I'm gonna blow up my city for a moment. I would not feel safe in a hostel in my city.
Oh, okay.
I think it's so strange to share a room with strangers overnight, like in a shared room.
I mean, it's
in a
very
bed.
much the sort of what's the other thing called? Like couch surfing vibe, you know? If you're kind of into the sort of crappy, super low key holidays, you're kind of into the hostel
Right, but
circuit
at least it's like a
of the world, I guess.
the hostel circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at least
sure.
it's like a house, right? It's like a place you
I
have a
mean,
little bit of privacy.
I mean, sure. It's like a sort of group accommodation, you know, when you're
Yeah.
having like how do I translate this? Like we have like in the last class of high school, we usually have like a sort of camping trip for a week with your
Right.
classmates.
Okay,
Like
I
that
could
kind
see
of
that.
thing, you know?
Yeah, that's fine with me. But I was literally looking into like hostels to stay at, and obviously the cheapest option was a hostel with like 14 beds, and I'm like 14 strangers in one
Yeah.
room.
Uh-huh.
It's blowing my mind. And I know people do this. I know a lot of people consider this like totally safe, but there's like a mentality that
I mean,
grew
I
up with that I
understand it
cannot.
though. Like I
process
wouldn't
that.
if I have like enough money or if I am not like super careless, I would not
Mhm.
choose for a hostel necessarily for my
course.
holiday. I mean, I'm not rich, but at least yeah, I also prefer like some privacy in my room, I guess. But it's a sort of alternative option if you don't really care at all about any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good option for people who like backpack through Europe, for people who like
Yeah.
don't want to have the
It's kind of
fanciest
the passing
accommodations
through
for just a bed,
vibe.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was like a video where there was like a tour through the whole building, and there's like a rec center, and there's like a place where you can cook your own breakfast if need be. It's like a shared community
Yeah, it's sort of
space. I'm like,
shared
that's really cool.
accommodation. Yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of what it is. Yeah.
And it
Well,
reminds
glad
me of
you got
like
to
a college
know
dorm room.
what a hostel is. Yeah, it's kind of like a dorm room. Yeah.
Yeah,
For
just
sure.
blew my mind though.
Love that for you.
Totally new concept to me.
Is it like
that
super
shows you-
different than to like what are you looking up now in terms of like Europe traveling versus because you've done some trips in America, I assume, or
Yeah,
adjacent.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually, I mean, most of my trips have obviously been with my family, so we try to get like a shared room with all of
Oh,
us,
yeah.
which is
hmm
totally normal. And we've done like
Sure.
Airbnbs before, so like that's a thing.
Yeah. Okay. That's like a worldwide thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's truly just like I don't I don't want to dwell. I'm exposing myself here as someone who clearly has not traveled enough.
I mean, I don't blame you. Like, I've never been in a plane before, so we're like even, I guess, on that
You've
side.
never been in a plane before?
No.
We're not even talking about the podcast anymore.
It's fine, you know.
Truly. So most
I mean, I'm also a bit of an
like,
exception, I guess, in here. So it's not like, oh, everyone from Europe has never like traveled.
Oh,
before.
yeah, I mean,
not at all.
okay, well, I guess the idea is that like all the countries are so close together in Europe that like a plane isn't really necessary.
Well, yeah, that's
you know?
one thing. So it's like you don't really have to go that far to feel like you're in a super different place, which is, I guess, a thing. And then I know when we were younger, we used to do a lot of travels, but we always would do it by car. So the furthest we went is like Italy or something, when you're like, you know, I think we did it like in a casual way. So we were like riding for 2.5 days or something with like hostels or hotels in between. Yeah, which was super fun. But then also my mom is not keen on flying. So if avoidable, we would always not do it. And now I'm kind of fine. I don't really, you know, need it. And also like we went to quite a lot of places, but you don't really need the plane that much unless you're to a specific location, right?
No,
like
that's valid.
We went to like England or like Sweden and stuff. I mean, you can get there faster, but also the travel is kind of nice in itself. Like it's nice if it takes a long time, I feel, because then you really earn it or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Part of the vacation is the journey. Like I was looking up like train trips too. And I'm like, wow, this is actually a really cool option.
It's kind of nice.
That much time. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that my brother went to like Paris for like just, I guess, 3 days or something when he was younger with my dad. And they just had like one Interrail train or something.
Awesome.
Which is a big vibe. Honestly, I would really love to do that one time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess most of the places I've had to fly, I guess. I mean, I've been all over the Northeast, but if I have to go to Florida or California, that's obviously like a plane trip, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I guess that's also a big difference in America, right? Like Holland is the smallest country with with like the biggest amount of people versus like square meters, I feel.
Since learning about the throwback to like episode 6. Since learning about the European
Throw me that geography
countries,
shade.
Netherlands is not the smallest.
What is the smallest country, Dante? Huh?
If I had to guess, probably Andorra or Liechtenstein.
I think officially it's the Vatican, but I'm not sure if that's still.
Does that?
I guess so.
Is that a country though? Okay.
I mean, no, but in the geography quizzes, it is.
Yes, it is. It is.
That's where I get my knowledge. Okay.
Speaking of podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
We should really. Before we get too sidetracked, let's jump into our topics.
Yeah.
that was a hard left transition.
Let's talk about like relevant stuff. Yeah.
Listen, there's a good chance we'll be talking about this for months to come. So
sure.
Anyway,
we got time.
Should I jump into my first topic?
Sure. Yeah. Hit me.
Cool. I don't know how to intro this. So the topic I wanted to bring today, it transcends a whole lot of genres. The way you approach it is actually really interesting in how it changes the dynamic of the story. But at its premise, it's very, very simple. My topic for this week is wishes. Ooh. And this is not like
nice
dreams and desires sort of wishes. This is more of the magical, supernatural wishes as it's presented in a lot of media.
We love it. Yes.
Easiest examples right off the bat is the Disney story Cinderella, where she gets a wish from her fairy godmother, and Aladdin, where he gets wishes from the genie. And at least from my childhood, one of the most popular animations was The Fairly Odd Parents, where Timmy gets basically one wish every single episode, and how they resolve it is rather unique. So to kind of kick off this topic, when I say a wish has been granted, what kind of feeling is evoked when that phrase is kind of said or spoken into the story or plot line? Like, what does that tell you about the story right from the jump?
Well, if I had any context, then it feels like the God, I don't know the English word for this, but like the thing that you have in music when the measure doesn't start, but you have like a pre sort of thing to the music. Do you know what this word is?
Well, we can Google it. We have the power of Google.
Hold on. I know the Dutch word.
You know the Dutch word. Okay, you look it up in Dutch. I'll look it up in English. Is it when the count is like before the time signature?
I think.
What is it?
Is it upbeat? Does that work? Or no? You have no idea what I'm talking about.
I don't think so.
My Google says, when a music piece starts with an incomplete bar, we call that an upbeat. Like when you have, I don't know, 1 or 2 notes before like the bar starts.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, right? I guess it is, yeah, the upbeat. That would make sense.
Okay, well, that's what I mean. that the idea of like, ooh, a wish has been granted for me really sounds like the upbeat to a music piece, because it's like, oh, we're getting there and sort of the actual exciting part will take off soon. But depending on the context, I guess we wouldn't know how much of that is like mysterious or mystical or, you know, already filled in. If we knew the wish exactly, you know, things would be different. We could have like a very concrete idea of what that is. But like in general, or in like the kind of Peter Pan kind of way of like, ooh, if you hear a children's laugh, somewhere a fairy's been born, you know? That's super whimsical and amazing to me, because it's like the very like humble start of something.
Right. I assume that everyone listening like knows what a wish is or what a wish presents itself to be. But just in case, basically...
Yeah, let's define this, yeah.
Yeah, the usual structure of this is that there's a character introduced. They're usually in some sort of unfortunate situation or an unlucky position, and they're introduced with an opportunity to have whatever they desire or be granted one thing that they want.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is done haphazardly. Sometimes this is done with something very clear in mind. And the story, depending on where the wish sits in the story, right, it resolves in very different ways. So that's specifically what I want to talk about in terms of like a storytelling structure, the effect or the impact a wish has on the flow of the story. So just as an example, right?
Gotcha.
In The Fairly Odd Parents, right? The story of a show all about a kid getting wishes and seeing how it plays out, right?
Yeah.
The wish always happens at the top of the episode. It always happens at the start.
Right.
Timmy Turner sees something. He's like, oh, I wish it was like this. The wish happens. And then things aren't exactly how he was hoping, right? Like there's that moment where he's very lucky, very fortunate. Everything's working out perfectly as he imagined. And then he realizes like the classic caveats of the wish. You know?
There's something off.
Something tricky about it. And then by the end of the story, usually the wish is reverted or changed to the point that it almost never happened at all. That might be more classic to a serialized TV structure, but it's certainly how a lot of books play out, you know?
Yeah.
Think about like, I don't know, gosh, what am I? I'm pulling from like real older movies like Freaky Friday, when the mom and the daughter wish they had each other's lives, so they're swapped entirely.
That's like the body swap thing, right? Isn't that? Yeah, gotcha.
Exactly, with Lindsay Lohan and the actor that's very famous that I cannot remember at this very moment.
That's fine.
But, they basically live each other's lives and realize that how good they had it previously. So the goal of the story is to revert the wish, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, specifically with the Fairly Odd Parents one, the Timmy Turner one. I mean, of course, part of the fact that it's almost completely reverted to, you know, the same situation or people from the very beginning of the episode is, of course, the fact that there's going to be a next episode and they're going to have to be able to, you know, broadcast interchangeably. But for me, really strikes that format. I mean, the wish is a sort of catalyst for things to start or to, you know, start to go right and then wrong, I guess. But it's aside from that, the whole thing of like finding a moral in something that happens, which is kind of what every episode is doing, is, I think, quite common in any kind of structure. So I think the wish specifically is sort of the commonality within every episode. Yeah, the jump start, I guess, to things, which is quite nice.
Jump start.
Yeah, it's a sort of loophole almost.
Yeah, I think stories that start with a wish, that introduce a wish right at the very beginning, aim to end the story with some sort of moral, right?
Yeah,
like,
I guess
don't take things for granted, be happy with yourself, like things are better than you think they are, things like that, you know?
Yeah.
Now there's a opposite side to this, basically.
Okay.
There's almost like a mirror story structure that comes with wishes, which is when the wish happens at the very end. And the journey is getting yourself to the wish. The journey is achieving the opportunity to wish. And there is kind of, I might be dating myself with this, but there is an old movie that I watched when I was a kid that I very much can like never forget. And this is kind of
okay.
this is my perfect example of a wish that happens at the end, basically. It is a movie called Animaniacs Wacko's Wish.
Oh, okay.
Are you familiar with Animaniacs?
I don't know the movie, but I know Animaniacs. Yeah, it's great. I've seen like a few of the series, I think.
Yeah, cool. So Wacko's Wish. I'm gonna. There's very brief synopsis.
Yeah, give me a summary here. Yeah.
Of why I can like not forget this movie. It's lived in the back. There's a single brain cell in the back of my head.
Its own right. Yeah, to me.
Whose whole job is to remember this movie.
What's the magic of this movie? Yeah, it's very intriguing.
So basically, it's the same setting. They all live in Warner Brothers Studios, but it's slightly changed. That basically that Warner Brothers town has fallen into poverty because some rich guy has kind of bought all the stock of the company and is overtaxing the town. A little bit meta, a little bit, yeah. Sure. Had something to do with AT&T back in the day. But anyway, Wacko of the Animaniacs takes up a new job to, pay the taxes, and he earns a single hay penny, which is half a penny, right? He's going to use this hay penny to pay for his sick sister's operation. So Dot is sick and he's going to use this hay penny to pay for it, right?
Okay.
But the rich guy takes even that hay penny from him due to taxes. So in a last-ditch effort, this is the premise of the story. He wishes upon a star to help solve this problem, right? And it turns out the star that he wishes on is the only wishing star in the whole sky.
Oh.
The catch is that it falls from the sky into the distance. So the first person to get to that star gets the wish.
Oh, so it's like a race now. Okay.
Yeah, so everyone in town knows about the star. Even the rich guy knows about the star, and everyone's trying to get it, right? Ooh. So to spoil a 20-year-old movie.
How dare you?
Wacko eventually, everyone in town has their own wishes, obviously, because they're all in poverty. They're all trying to get something. The conclusion is that Wacko gets the wish. And he wishes for not one, but 2 hay pennies. So one he's going to use for his taxes, and one he's going to use for the operation.
Nice.
And this hay penny, this is the conclusion of the story.
Okay.
So remember, this is still the Animaniacs. This one hay penny that circulates around the community ends up solving everything, because now everyone can afford what they need to by spending that hay penny and passing it to somebody else in town who can then spend that hay penny.
I love it.
To pay for their thing.
This is I instantly understand that this is an Animaniacs plot. No. Somehow.
And obviously the resolution of the story is the whole town is recovered due to a circulating economy where there previously was zero,
Good on Wacko.
So 2 things I learned from this movie. 1, what is a hay penny? Never knew.
Nice.
2, part of the adventure, part of the wish is getting to it. The wish in itself is not really the lesson, right? You're not learning from what you get from the wish. It's what you learn along the way that changes what you wish for by the very end of it. Right?
Yeah. Fair enough.
And there's a lot of stories that basically are an adventure or a chase to obtain that wish, right? The wish is like the MacGuffin at the very end of the story.
Yeah.
And they work to collect it, gather a team, make friends, overcome obstacles to get there. And then once they get there, they're a wiser, maturer person who knows what they want to wish for.
Yeah.
Or if they need it at all,
This is like the real thing. It's when the friends you made along the way, the meme. That's kind of what it is.
Basically that.
And then you don't even need the wish except for, another hay penny, I guess.
Yeah. So basically, why is this so interesting to us? Why do we love these sort of stories? What's the appeal of basically story? Because there's a lot of these stories. There's a lot of these movies and books that center around a singular supernatural wish. What's so cool about it?
Is that you're asking me?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, okay.
My bad. Yeah.
I thought there was going to be an explanation. Okay. What's so cool about it? Well, here's what's cool about it. I think, for one, it's the appeal of something supernatural, which is in itself already an entire, genre or trope or whatever you want to call it. But aside from that, it's also, as I said, maybe a bit earlier, it's a sort of loophole. It's a cheat code to things.
Right.
It's a means to a quick fix, I guess. Maybe not quick, depending on, how far the race is, I guess, but or when the story starts, which I think also comes back to the Fairy Odd Parents example, where we're like, okay, if we instantly get it, there's no travel or hardships to obtain this wish, then we learn that the wish itself is not really good anyway in the end, or we never needed it in the first place, or things are worse because of it, or whatever. And if we have this entire travel, we kind of, or the big lead up, we make friends, we have stakes and stuff to get the wish, then we don't really need the wish at the end because we've learned things already on the way.
Of course.
Which is interesting. And I think the appeal for wishes in the sort of classic Cinderella way is to kind of obtain an ideal of sorts, or, you know, to get out of a situation that feels very mundane. And I think that's how it's used a lot of times, because a wish can, you know, grant riches or beauty or, you know, all these sort of fairy tale like ideas, right? Or ideals, I should maybe say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whether they are like actually realistic often proves the point that the wish is not good. But, you know, that's kind of what we strive for then, I guess.
I think there's something really appealing to seeing how a what if scenario plays out, right? Like you got the hero who down on their luck, but otherwise a very good, like decent person, right? So the what if scenario that we love seeing play out in these stories that we read about or watch is, what if they had this power? What if they had this authority? What would they do with it? What if they had this like incredible ability that we've never seen before? How would a good person handle it? Or inversely, how would a mentally unprepared person handle that? You know,
more fun.
Someone who's not ready for that kind of burden of power or responsibility.
Yeah, sure. Know? And I think the interesting part about wishes is also that, because, you know, we have superhero stories or whatever, you know, there's magic spiders that bite people and then you're Spider-Man, right? But that's different. I mean, I get the same, I guess, the same results, you know, suddenly we're supernatural, or we have all these powers, or we have the ability to have influence in the world, right? But then the difference with wishing for it yourself, I find a wish in general kind of more interesting, because it's an active try to change things, right? Versus, you know, it just overcomes you, I guess. Or comes at you. I realize that overcomes is like Dinglish, which is like just translating a Dutch word literally in English. It's not the same word. But so it just kind of happens to you. And I think the interesting part about a wish, this is what we also know about D&D, by the way, we can talk about that in a sec maybe, but is that you are the instigator. You are the one that will change things with your words or your brain or your closed eyes blowing out a candle, right?
Of course.
And because of that, how optimistic you are, or how much of a, you know, dream big kind of person you are or not, or how humble you are if you only wish for 2 halfpennies, right? Changes the results of, you know, your transformation or your change in the world. And that's also a really interesting thing. It's intrinsically linked to you as a person, depending on what you're wishing.
Right. It's very much a reflection of morality, of values, like personal values.
Yeah, and greed and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, right. And that's a perfect like contrast to superhero stories where superpowers are often happenstance, right? And you have to kind of wrestle with suddenly having this even though you didn't ask for it. For this,
exactly.
You very specifically asked for it.
It's literally the point, yeah.
So it's like, oh no, look at this. Is this the consequences of my actions? You know, that kind of thing.
You can't blame it on the spider, this one, yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very much, it does lean into kind of a story of greed versus greater good, right?
I mean, sort of, yeah.
Because a lot of wishes have like unlimited power, right? So you can use this to better the world. You can use this in a generous way, but most people like wouldn't. Most people would use it to bolster themselves and that's kind of how stories kick off. And it says like, okay, so this is what happens when you're greedy. You know, this is what happens when you ask for too much for yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, like, as we were talking, like, do I know of a story that has a wish or, you know, a similar thing in it that doesn't have this sort of typical careful what you wish for moral? But it's hard to...
Monkey's Paw?
Yeah. Oh, what's that?
Oh, Monkey's Paw?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait. So basically... Oh, yeah. So basically the be careful what you wish for phenomenon is called a monkey's paw, right?
Oh, that's just a name for it? Okay.
Yeah, there's literally an old story that centers around a monkey's paw. It's a literal monkey's paw that allows you, that it grants wishes. When you use it, you have your wish granted, but it often takes the wish too literally. And as the paw curls, like as the fingers curl in, the wish is kind of switched, and you realize how you could have worded it better, or you phrased it the wrong way, or
fascinating.
It's taken too literally. So the monkey's paw from that story has kind of taken on its own meaning as the consequences of a badly phrased or badly timed wish.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking, like, do I know of stories that don't have this but still are like about wishing something? And I was thinking maybe there's a book series called The Magicians, I think, by Lev Grossman. Grossman. It's maybe nicer to say. I don't know how you pronounce his name. But I guess the super basic premise is it's kind of like Harry Potter, but more college-y and more like realistically in terms of its whimsicalness. Like it's very realistic at times, or people are, bored or depressed or confused about whatever they're doing there.
Okay.
And the main character has read Narnia-like books for forever. Like they've always dreamt of, this existing. And then suddenly they get accidentally called out to this college school, I guess.
Got it.
Where it exists. And then, a few chapters later, he's studying there and, living his life there. And he's like, wow, okay, so this is it now. And he has to sort of realize that this is also this is also one of many realities. And at some point, it gets normal because you live in it all the time. And it's not like this super whimsical, beautiful, always enamoring surroundings that you find yourself in. It's also a school with just people things and, mundane things.
Yeah.
But that's not really, a wish or something. So yeah, I don't know if you have any better, but yeah, that's kind of all I could think of.
Of like wishes to just follow through and people,
I mean,
people don't try to reverse them.
I don't know. It's kind of sounds interesting to me. Like, are there other tropes except for like careful what you wish for morals in like stories about wishing? I'm not sure.
I feel like in stories that center around wishing, especially the ones that are like omnipotent wishes, right? Like world-changing wishes.
Yeah.
Usually they're not left perfectly to craft, right? They're not usually left exactly as they were wished. They're like maybe modified or changed somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
or just entirely reverted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just story structure, right?
Yeah, maybe. But I wonder what it does if your wish just is that nice wish that people think it is, we've seen the careful what you wish for stories. I don't know. Maybe I'm just forgetting things that also exist, but yeah, I would love to see like a different take on this is I think
absolutely.
What I'm saying, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would be cool if like wishes were left intact, but the characters, know how to use the wish powers more responsibly, right? There's like kind of a maturing that happens throughout the story. But I really can't think of any stories that have that sort of premise right off the top of my head. All right. Well, this is when we toss it out to our wonderful viewers. If you do know any stories like this,
write it. Go write it, you guys.
Yes, write it. Exactly that. But if you do find any, in the meanwhile, while you're writing this incredible story,
yeah, I'm kind of curious now.
Let us know. We have an email, yourriversarewrong@gmail.com, and you can send it to us there. And we'd love to know about it.
Yes.
Probably going to talk about it afterwards. But great stuff. That's all I had for this topic. I just think that it's such a fun premise.
Yeah, cool. Fascinating. And it's quite specific also. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's a great way to kick off an adventure.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's very true.
All right, I'm going to kick it over to you. What topic do you have for us today?
Yeah, I have a bit of a smaller one, I think, today, or maybe a bit more literal one than, a trope or a genre or a story structure related thing. And I was just thinking about art or, mediums, I think, that are multidisciplinary. So basically use multiple disciplines of art in one artwork or in one piece, basically.
Interesting.
And I think that's a kind of classical thing for me because in my studies, this has been always the sort of idea or the thing that you should go with or that you should open yourself up to. For the uninitiated, I did graphic design here in Holland, but it was quite a freeing study in the way of like, it was not just logos and posters and typography, but it was also, you could kind of do any medium as long as your concept was, right. So, I also made videos and I made installations and I made soundscapes and I made whatever, visual art, all kinds of stuff, which is super fun. And what's interesting about that approach to art, because that's, I think, quite specific to what my study was doing, is that you sort of start not thinking really in like, oh, I want to make a movie or I want to make a song or I want to make, you're not really thinking in the art medium that you're going to use for it. But you're more thinking in what story do I want to tell or what do I want to present or what do I want to explore or, what's the subject I'm interested in now, right? I was just sort of curious because you have a very different background, I think. And of course, you're also having a super nice YouTube channel where you're doing like video related stuff, which is, in itself a little bit interdisciplinary. Like there's music, there's, text or talking, there's visual, right? If you ever thought about this or if you choose things specifically for, how they fit together or, Yeah,
of course. Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. So in terms of like kind of getting well versed in multiple forms of art, right? This is kind of the direction we're going.
Guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I kind of grew up with knowledge of video editing because my sister loved to do it and kind of picked up from her.
Oh, nice.
And of course, like when you're a kid, you start out with like, you know, anime music videos. Okay, I'm assuming.
Yes. I'm so happy.
Disclaimer, like not everybody starts out that way, but boy, did I. Like I saw my sister doing a cool like Inuyasha music video and I'm like, dang.
Oh,
I want to do one with like
of course
Naruto. But of course, let's put some like alternative rock in the background.
How old are we talking? When did you start like fiddling with this?
I started middle school.
Love it.
My first YouTube channel was in, I'm not going to put a year to that, but definitely 6th, 7th grade is when I started.
Cool.
So,
I'm so happy for like Tiny Duds.
It's absolutely so copyright claimed by now.
Perfect. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Some company owns all the revenue off of it, all 1,000 views. But for that, you have to learn, obviously, video editing. You have to learn, like, I learned Windows Movie Maker for that back when that was a thing.
Let's go.
And then I had to learn about cutting audio. Like, I had to learn about cutting audio, like sound level, sound design.
Yeah.
And then, you know, after a while, you want to get better at it, right? So you're going to throw transitions, and then you're going to throw text and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And from there, obviously, I just continued learning and all that. And I started filming, like, real life. I started, like, my friends. I wanted to make movies about my friends in high school. I did a lot of that.
Oh, fun.
So investing in cameras, investing in microphones.
Was this like documentary style, or was this like a fictitious thing, or what was the gist of it?
It mostly real life stuff, just documenting what we did throughout, like vlog style. Very vlog style, inspired by the YouTubers of old.
Love that.
So I learned like newer video programs. I went into like Sony Vegas was my first tried and true, and I used that for like over a decade.
Yeah.
Dated myself. But
too late now.
Yeah. But basically, there is an aspirative thing that you want to create. And to make it, you have to learn a whole lot of different things to get there. Specifically in video editing, you got to learn video, you got to learn audio, you got to learn microphone work, you got to learn camera work, lenses, and lighting, all that sort of thing, right? And then, of course, as I got into like YouTube, I got to make it look cool, right? I got to make it look fashionable. So thumbnails. I got to learn how to make those. You can't just throw up like Times New Roman and call it a day.
It's true.
So I learned Photoshop. I learned how to do like graphic design through YouTube tutorials and all that sort of thing. So suddenly I'm working in Vegas, Audacity, Photoshop, anything that edits like proper videos in terms of color grading and things like that. It was just like, I started picking up program after program after program because I had a vision of what I wanted to create, and what I knew wasn't enough to do it. Right?
Interesting.
So I didn't really go to school for it. I'm almost entirely YouTube taught.
Yeah, that's fine. Like many people, of course.
It was a very slow, ramshackle process where I just picked up things that I really enjoyed and then added it to my craft.
And that's interesting because it also sounds like it's sort of the means justify the ends. Like that sounds more dramatic than it is, but that's kind of how it works, right? Like you have an idea that you want, I really need this specific color, or I need them to, the visuals to match, and I can't do that with a program that I'm currently in. So then you pick something new. Is that kind of the gist of it? Yeah.
I remember in college, I got really inspired by like watching like cinematic movie intros and like, look at that logo fly in. How do I do that for like my college org? So I learned for a month, I learned After Effects. I learned how to like metallic textures and shading and lighting and camera setting up. And I didn't do that because I was looking for a career in After Effects. I did it because I wanted it to look really cool. It really is just bouts of inspiration.
Yeah.
I imagine like the professional approach as you've been taking, like you kind of have a vision for what you want your art to look like, and you kind of pick stuff up along the way to achieve that. Because I've seen your art before. Like it's very varied and like total. If it wasn't obvious for the people listening, Marla is very multi-talented. Like truly, like very good at a lot of things.
Thank you.
So, like, I kind of want to ask you, like, how did you work your way through that? Like, I don't know if it happened in college or before that. Like, what's that look like?
Well, linking to what I asked you a second ago, I think it's actually quite similar. Like the sort of means to an end thing is also very much how I do things usually. I remember there was one project in the second year of art school where we had to, I think it was like we had to make I'm trying to recollect this in my brain. But I think we had to make like anything, it literally didn't matter what, based on a book or a sentence of a book that you found nice or stupid or intriguing. That was kind of the whole assignment. And all the rest was kind of up to you. And there's this one children's book that I like that had a lot to do with the sea. And the first scenes of it are the main character, a little girl, is kind of having a conversation with the sea in her head because she lives next to it. And she's like, can't you be like quiet for once? And she's struggling to get through a bridge or something, or through the water, or I'm not sure, something like that. So it was kind of this conversation with the sea. And I was like, that's cool. I want to do that like visually. How do I make like a film or something out of that, like visually? Or like, I don't know, I want this to be like a moving image where you can sort of control something that looks like this. I don't know. There was a very strange like brain fart there that I sort of wanted to have like moving fluid, and I wanted it to be like kind of waterbendy style, but like in a different way. And then I came across all this YouTube. It's actually super fun. There's like a not super big YouTube channel. I think it's called Chemical Bouillon. And I think it's a couple of French art school students that are doing a lot of stuff with like ink in water.
Nice.
Metals and stuff in water, or where they have like, I mean, it's super abstract and it's super gorgeous to look at, right? So one thing they did, this is a super tangent, but one thing they did was make ferrofluid. I don't know if you know this, but this is like very small, like I think iron filings in water or in a sort of diluted something. And then if you hold a magnet to it, the fluid, quote unquote fluid, the super small metal particles in the fluid will move to your quote unquote touch. Like if you hold a magnet to it, the fluid kind of moves to it. So what I wanted to do was kind of create a very abstract video where this fluid, which is basically black or dark gray brown kind of color, would move with my hand or with a sort of pulse to it. So I bought this fluid and I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I'll just make a video now. Yeah, I bought a thing, super fucking expensive for like, I don't know, 1 milliliter of it. It's super stupid, but that's what you do, I guess.
Of course.
And then I borrowed like a super macro zoom lens from school. And then I made this super like zoomed in version of this fluid that was sort of moving on its own. And I didn't tell anyone what it was. And I was just like, and I guess I also made like an a cappella soundscape or something to it. Something like, how do you say that? Like a bit atmospherical kind of sound in addition to it, right? And then I just showed the video and people were like, what? What am I, what's, I don't,
it's awesome.
What's this? And I was like, I'm not going to tell you because it ruins the magic. But then I would never have done that if I didn't have like this super random idea, which is like the very long lead up to what I'm actually trying to say here. If I didn't have this super random idea of like, I want to kind of control fluid, but it shouldn't look like that. And I don't want people to know what it is. And, and then all of a sudden, I know what ferrofluid is and I know where to buy it.
Right.
And I know how it works. And I know how you make like macro video, which is the most random skill to have, I guess. But it really sort of specifically in art projects, but also like the way I'm doing things now is really, it sort of evolves based on what weird ideas I have.
Of course.
And based on that, I've kind of buy things or figure out things or whatever. And, at some point, also because I'm very interested in many disciplines and I love working in many disciplines, what you were saying, I also have quite a lot of tools available at this point. Like, as we've talked about before, like we're both into music. I love singing very much. So I did a lot of a cappella soundscapey stuff in school. That's not what I'm, that's not what I'm studying, but I did it anyway because I had the tools, So, and then people were like, oh, wait, you can, you just made this soundscape. Didn't you like have to hire it? And I was like, no, I can
you
sing.
Can do that?
Yeah. I did that before. I can do it. I can do it myself. And they were like, oh, okay.
Gosh, you're so talented. I can't stand it.
That's super. You're so talented. Oh my God.
You're so talented.
But that's quite nice. Like similar to the way that you're like, I kind of know how After Effects works now because I had to do it for this one weird idea that I got in my brain. And now I suddenly, broadened the scope of things that I'm capable working with. Right. And that's, I think, the biggest asset of it. I also had to kind of, I guess, learn to work together with people better because I was always kind of used to like, I'll figure it out myself. Not that I was always good at stuff, not at all. But I kind of had this mentality at some point and I was like, no, you don't have to do everything yourself. You can literally just, give this to other people and they also make like amazing
collaborative.
Things. So, yeah, exactly. So, it's a bit of both. But I guess it often how do you say this, like evolves based on the idea or concept, I guess, that's in my head, and not necessarily in whether I can do it or if I have it available.
And isn't that
which is
so
a healthy
cool?
mentality, I guess. Yeah.
I feel like this is something that couldn't have happened like 30 years ago, right? With the advent of the internet and all of these resources being available for us to learn, people are capable of pursuing their passions like more than ever before, because there's just like there's a sea of creators and teachers out there that you could learn from. And isn't that the fun of art? Pursuing chasing joy, right? Being
for sure.
I don't need to know how to do this. I will never need to know how to do this, but I want to.
But I'm learning it anyway.
I'm gonna, right?
Exactly.
Like I have a running thing with myself, and it's often a way to keep myself like motivated and inspired. I call it my other resume. I didn't go to college for art. Didn't go to college for video production or anything like that, or music,
podcasting.
For basically for any of my passions, I did not go to college for that. And I find myself today that my other resume, which is all of my extracurriculars, all of my art pursuits, is way, 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 way longer and accoladed than what I went to college for. So if someone's like literally at work, they were like, "Hey, can you like make us a PowerPoint for like this presentation for like the big boss?"
And you were like, "Can I make a PowerPoint?"
And I'm like, "Can I make a PowerPoint? Can I make a PowerPoint?" I truly took that PowerPoint, I used all my resources. I animated the background and every transition from slide to slide. So when they were presenting it, people were like, "Why is it so fancy? Why is there so much going on?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
I was ready for this moment.
I didn't go to college for that. I learned."
Amazing.
Like, chasing joy. It's learning like pursuit in art and learning things that you shouldn't need. You shouldn't know. You, by all accounts, you should not know how to do, but still being able to. Isn't that just like truly like, what's the word? Exhilarating? No, that's not the validating. Validating. That's the word.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also specifically the fact that you mentioned like everything's super available now, right? Internet is super, I mean, everywhere. Like I can access classes from America or from the UK that I'm literally doing for my study now, which is a remote study. Also reminded me a bit about the open source mentality. Like there's this, I guess this was also a thing we discussed in our school once. I'm not sure, but it kind of stuck in my brain. And it was kind of the idea of whether or not you should make something available or not if you made a unique thing. This is, of course, the whole discussion regarding like copyright, but also like when do you make an original artwork? What does that even mean? Because you're always sort of picking and choosing or using things that you love or, mimicking something that you like. It's the way that I, kind of taught myself different styles of singing in the way of like, oh, I love operatic voice. I can just try to do it. And if it works, then it's great. And I can do it. And if it doesn't work, I guess it's really hard and cool on the people that can actually do it. Like, that's really cool, and this sort of the fact that things are available or that things are on YouTube, or the fact, for example, I built my professional website with like a readily available template. Like I can, not really, I know basic HTML and CSS and stuff,
nice,
but I'm not very good at the back end of it. I'm just mainly there for the visual coolness of it, right? Obviously,
learn just enough.
So I was like, okay, I can tweak all I want, but the structure needs to be kind of good because I won't be able to set it up, and I'm not super interested in learning, right? Which is, I could have learned it, but I wasn't really, into that much of coding, I guess.
You got to stop yourself somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. You can't learn everything in the whole world, have I realized lately. Yeah.
Right.
So I bought, a basic HTML template that had like different colors and blah, 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 but it doesn't matter because I knew kind of how to tweak it, which is great because if that didn't exist, if that knowledge was only, knowledge that was available in college or was in books that I had to buy or stuff, right? I wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that counts for literally all the sort of, I guess, 30 years or younger people that have acquired skills over time, like you or like me as well. Like I started graphic design with like the crappy things that you have online where you're like, make my picture transparent.com, right? Those are things. I used those for so many years when I made like crappy covers for friends and stuff, right? I didn't have Photoshop. You know how expensive this shit is?
Yeah, of course.
You know,
it's too expensive.
So, and if that wasn't there, you know, even though it's the crappy shit, I wouldn't be able to try that out or know how it works. I wouldn't have the understanding of how transparency works in imagery. You know, that's a specific skill that I wouldn't be able to learn if that was behind a paywall or behind like college knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important and like relevant, both for like learning, but also just like absorbing art. Like that's the thing that the struggle with lately, mostly in like movies and stuff. Like there's so many like streaming platforms and I can't subscribe to all of them because I would have no money, but I want to see all of it. You know, it's kind of this, if you just make everything available, then that sort of loses the annoyance of it and you can just really watch anything and sort of gain knowledge from anything. But it's a different mentality. Like some people are really like, no, I want my art to be mine, which is also understandable. So it's an interesting discussion there that's going on for a bit, I guess. Yeah, which is
I think that's
fascinating.
Valid. Yeah, there's definitely an accessibility question where it's like, do you want your art to be easily replicated? You know, and not everybody does.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was for D&D, there's an artist who had a very specific way of detailing his dungeon maps. It was like a thatching method that like surrounds the edges and it looked very cool. And then someone on the internet made a way to generate that via AI and like auto make it. Like without basically circumventing all of his hours of work and his very specific style. Yeah. And there was a clash on like, should this be allowed? Should his like signature style be able to be so easily copied? And it was Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's shitty for him, but I also really understand why it happened.
Of course. Art inspires, right? And good art is replicated. Good art is imitated. You know?
Yeah, and it's always sort of jumble up of things that you've seen before or, you know, heard of or people that have been admired by the artist anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I have an opinion on this, but of course the other side is also very valid. But yeah,
of course.
I find the discussion interesting anyway, because it really ties into a lot of things of like ownership, but also, you know, artistic expression. Like where does sort of copying or where does something new start? And I think it's fascinating.
And I think an easy tie-in of this topic to like storytelling and world building is that like when we create a story or a campaign or a setting, 90% of it isn't original. I'm truly like not creative enough to come up with something that nobody has ever thought of before.
Of course not.
What I do is I take my favorite parts of everything that I love and I throw it into campaigns and I hope that people like it too, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a form of flattery. And as long as I'm not profiting
also.
off of it.
No, that's very true. Yeah. And even if you were profiting, like how many Harry Potter-like stories came out after Harry Potter?
Right.
Like, and it was okay because that was the sort of tendency at the time and the trend that was going on. And people bought it because they loved it anyway, even though it wasn't Harry Potter, but it felt like Harry Potter or, you know, magic wizardry stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I think.
Or literally how D&D works, right? D&D is literally like Tolkien, but gamified.
Exactly.
I mean,
so it's about like acknowledging and respecting your inspirations and, you know, attributing what belongs to them, obviously, but freely expressing yourself with what you appreciate and what you love and what inspires you to build your own story and make something new and something truly your own, you know? Share, like, is one of the best things about art is that you can share it, that other people can witness it.
Yeah, you know? And you can riff off of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very true.
The collaborative effort.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a cool topic.
Nice.
Really love that.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah, and I think something very intimately familiar with both of us.
Relevant, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I won't pretend that I don't every day wonder what my job is. So, you know.
Listen, it'll come to be clear, I'm sure. You'll look back on it in 30 years and be like, that's what it was. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Or I'll be like, why did I ever like try to name it anyway? So much effort. Yeah.
Why box yourself into
why
one
bother?
label,
yeah. Exactly.
It's just like one tape you put on the box that says my work.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And that's it.
My stuff. Yeah. Don't touch. No.
Yeah.
Love it.
So this is coming to be a pretty long recording, or pretty long podcast. So we'll keep this prompt brief. We usually end every podcast with a prompt, a story prompt, and make a very quick story. I kind of improvise a quick story from it. So you know what? I'm going to, I had a different idea when we started this episode, but my idea has since changed.
Ooh,
so we're going to limit this,
okay.
obviously, as I tried to do, to 5 minutes. We can go over, under, as we are inspired. But the prompt taps into both of our topics. You ready for it?
Okay, bring it on.
All right. A struggling artist comes across a ring with a single wish.
Ooh.
That's it. That's the prompt.
Okay. Ooh. That was soon. A struggling artist comes across a ring with one wish in it.
Yep.
That's it, right?
That's it.
Ooh. Okay. Well, first off, comes across. That sounds like, oh, it's actually in the basement of my grandma's house that I've been cleaning, you know?
Naturally.
Which I already like. It's not like, ooh, we're getting this important magic wish that nobody can get and it's taking all this time. And it's like, oh no, I found this in my basement.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Maybe they were scouring or packing up their old work to be in the theme. Okay. And they came across this ring or like this jewelry box or something. And one of them was like weirdly sparkly. And they were like, that's weird. I don't own expensive stuff at all. Like I sold all of my latest stuff.
Got it.
They just casually put it on. And they don't really feel anything. Maybe they're just like, oh, I guess it's an interesting aesthetic. I'll just keep going. Okay. And they don't think about it for a few hours or something. And then at some point, maybe they have a conversation with a friend or they just think out loud for a second and they just wish for something random. I feel like this is a very like passive wish fulfilling here because I like that sort of weird casualness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. What would the actual wish be?
I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. I would say like maybe the wish to stay in this theme would be like a sort of thought out loud, not meant to be like actually fulfilled, but just a sort of frustrational grunt of like, if only people would just buy the stuff I make. And the ring sparkles weirdly and suddenly gets like super tight or something. And they're like, what the hell's going on? And they sort of rush back home and be like, I don't know what's going on. Help, it's not getting off.
Ooh, okay.
And then maybe something loosens or it gets normal again or it just falls, turns to ash. I'm not sure. Magic.
Sure.
And the next day, I guess, or the first time they make something, perhaps they're a painter to just keep it classical, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
The first time they make like a tiny doodle in the corner of their sketchbook, or they're just sitting outside having a call and just sort of doodling away. Someone comes by and is like infatuated with it and is like, nice. I will not leave here before you sell me this. And they're like, oh, okay. I get, well, this is like a doodle of like half a page. So I guess like, I don't know, maybe like 50 euros. Sure. And they're like, here's 200. Can you make more of this? And they're like, oh, okay, I guess. Can you, like, should I make, like, a lot more? And they're like, yes, please. I will buy everything that you ever own. And then the second person comes and he's like, oh, wait, you just made that? Can I have one too? And I really, like, can I actually buy this one? Because I really, like, need it right now. And this whole sort of crowd starts gathering right and they're like, oh, fuck, well, hold on. I'm going to be like, I'll be back in a sec. And they'll just rush back home and they're like, okay, what the hell just happened? And they try to like look for the remains of this ring that became really weird for a second. They're like, something's up. I don't trust this. I don't trust this at all. And then maybe they go on like the internet or something. And they're like, right. Is there like a weird ring that does this to people? And there's like a weird sort of underground forum where people are like, oh yeah,
like an occult website.
It's definitely like a cult website where they're like, yeah, this is actually a thing. And if you ever find this, like, either keep it far away from you or never think any thoughts again because you might accidentally kill yourself. And they're like, okay, well, fuck, that's inconvenient. Glad I wished for something as mundane as this. And then the next day, their house is flooded with people that want to take photographs or like look them up online because they had a few paintings online. They were like, building the road to success slowly but surely. Yeah, they were building their website. Yeah, exactly. And they were like, can you make me a website? Can you make me a painting that I can put on a website that you can make? Can you make like everything in my life for me from now on?
Oh, gosh.
And they're like, what did I just do?
I'm so stressed.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe this is like the end of the first episode. I feel like this is like a series or something.
It's a series? Okay.
It feels like a sort of...
We'll greenlight it for a full season. 10 episodes, 45 minutes long each, please.
Yeah, it feels like a serialized thing.
Amazing.
This can get like so out of hand. But I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's just a prompt. You don't need to finish stories.
That's true. That's perfectly true.
Love that. Right. We're going to sit on that. Gosh, I'm going to think about that for the rest of the day. Oh, no.
Love that for you.
Cool. Great. God, the guy doesn't even have a name. I can't even think about what. Okay, anyway,
doesn't matter. Fine. They're gonna buy that.
This is fine. With many great art pieces, it is left unfinished. But yes. you know, it is finished. This episode of the podcast.
Hey, perfect ending.
Thank you for listening to this episode. You could find us on multiple streaming platforms, including the one you're watching on right now.
Listening,
yes, please. If there's any podcast platform we're not on, let us know, because I've made sure to cover a whole lot of them. yourriversarewrong@gmail.com is our contact information, and hope you tune in again. Hope you're inspired to world build and storytell.
Yeah.
But as you do, always remember, your rivers are wrong.
Yeah, they're like super wrong.
Incredibly wrong.
I was saying before that they were like pretty wrong, but you know, it's getting worse. You should maybe like
truly get something you should
maybe just put it
start
on Reddit.
Working on.
Yeah. They always have like great advice for like
great advice for fixing rivers. Sure thing. See you guys, everyone. Peace.
See ya. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes that you'd like to hear us cover, feel free to contact us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. Our intro and outro music is written by Maarten Schellekens. Thanks for that. And again, thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you at the next one.